Today I have the privilege of talking to Pete Durham, a well-known dairy farmer in KZN and also Jersey breeder. Pete, very welcome to this short interview.
Thank you, Japie.
Pete, obviously this is all about the launching of a genomic service for dairy cattle in South Africa, and as you are aware, Stadboek is launching this. By including genomic information in our breeding value predictions. So the first question would be, or just your opinion on how do you think the breeders will ultimately, or the milk producers in a wider spectrum, will benefit from this new development?
I think that the reality around agriculture is one of the key drivers in terms of improving productivity has always been technology. It has been, and it will continue to be, one of the primary drivers. The advantage I see in the genomics is to get a more accurate indication of the breeding value of your particular animals that you have. The challenge, obviously, for the commercial farmer, which even though ones that may necessarily be a stud breeder, there's got to be a cost benefit. And the general rule around technology is, as the greater adoption takes place of a technology, the price normally is driven down, or you get a multiplying effect in terms of what you get for the same rand value. Our challenge is really about the cost benefit, because that's going to be the real driver in terms of using a technology. And the way I see it is, when one gets to capacity and you're in a position where you have got surplus progeny being born on the farm, then one needs to be in a position to be able to select and retain the better percentile of those progeny for the future of the herd. The other side, which I think has enormous potential, is the whole thing around health traits. I don't think it's all about production anymore. I think the health traits, in terms of fertility, productive life, udder health, those are going to be the key issues of the future. There's going to be a lot more pressure on dairy farmers and intensive animal production systems to reduce the usage of antibiotics, and that alone is going to require us to have healthier animals and healthier productive systems.
Thank you, Pete. You know, I think what makes this thing different to maybe some other, products that's available elsewhere is the fact that we've basically built this from Stadboek's perspective on a reference population, a South African reference population, where we use genotypes of bulls that obviously had recorded progeny in South Africa, and also recorded females in South Africa. Do you consider this to be an important aspect in the application of this technology or genomic selection as far as you're concerned?
One of the big challenges has always been, how do you actually take a number of technologies that have improved and been developed in other countries and applying them into your own circumstances? When genomics first got launched, we as South Africa, we didn't have access to that technology. And I think it was one of the main primary reasons for the demise of the studs like Taurus and so forth. They had a 5-year moratorium on access, and the adoption of genomics has become unilateral. The genetic advancements and the speed at which the genetics are being made available, tested and are made available to the world is of such a nature that genomics is here to stay. The real question is how applicable are the results in other countries and to our population. So in the jerseys, for example, there's quite a high correlation between Denmark and South Africa, the genetic population, and America and South Africa. But it's still, South Africa has its own unique population. And for it to really start working, we need to have something that's correlated, more closely correlated to our own population. I think the one thing that is going to drive or become the first key driver in terms of commercial farms is going to be the whole issue with inbreeding. I think we're all getting to the point where the inbreeding and managing of inbreeding is becoming extremely difficult because of the speed at which genetics has become available. Unfortunately, to a large extent, genomics has also resulted in a lot of closely bred, and the population diversity is getting smaller, which makes it even more difficult. So all these factors all add up to challenges that we're going to all face in the future. Challenges of the cost of rearing a heifer today. I was looking at some data. It's in the region of 20,000 Rand for a Holstein heifer. And if you take into account mortalities and so forth, even mortalities in the first lactation, it goes to 24,000 Rand to raise a heifer. You cannot afford anymore to invest in poor genetic potential animals, where the return on investment is, you're paying 24,000, and if you've got surplus animals, those surplus animals are probably market value of around about 15,000. I'm talking about in the Holstein context, 15, 16,000. So there is just no ways you can afford to raise poor genetic potential animals. It's just too expensive relative to their return. Back to you, Japie.
Thank you, Pete. I think you basically answered my last question. In terms of how do you decide what technologies to use and what to just sort of don't focus on. And I think you, to a large extent, has answered the question of how do you see this being used in the future. I don't know if you have something else to say on this.
Well, Japie, if you take into account the cost of things, I mean, semen depends on what quality semen you buy. It varies between 100 and 200 Rand a straw, and you're looking at rule of thumb, 5 straws to get a heifer into the boiler. So you're looking at roughly, call it 800 to 1,000 Rand that you're investing in genetics. Secondly, so the 800 Rand roughly, which it currently costs, is pretty much on par with what you're investing in semen anyway. But that is a minor cost. I think semen is in the region of, well, call it 1,000 Rand out of 24,000. The real cost is the cost of rearing that animal, and feed is the major component of that. So by being able to select prior to investing all that money is a critical aspect of it. And ultimately, it gives you more confidence in retaining progeny from those animals in the future by doing those initial selection. So and it all depends on your goals in terms of what you're going to choose, your breeding goals in terms of what you're going to choose as your genetic characteristics which you're going to prefer to have in your herd. But I think that we're going to get to the point, or we already got to the point where one's got to look at technology as a tool to invest, so that we're investing in the right animals for our particular circumstances. How it is adopted is another question. The reality is it's there, and one needs to look at technology and say, how does it benefit me and my business, and what cost benefit return? And that's why I sort of brought this issue up in terms of the rearing costs, because it's a hidden cost for dairy farmers. They don't see it, but they're investing it in every day. And, you know, those animals, to spend that amount of money and then not get what you want is a seriously big cost and of the dairy business today.
Thanks very much, Pete. I really appreciate your time, and also the example that you set in using technology in your own herd and in breeding dairy cattle, and also I think the way that you anticipate things to happen in terms of economics and how you apply that in your herd. Like I said, thanks very much for your time, and good luck for the future. I think luck comes from being practical and using the information and the technologies at your disposal well. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.